True liberty is the opportunity to simply be who you are. These enduring phrases from great thinkers like Kierkegaard cut through the false appearances of modern existence, reminding us that being genuine has always been a silent act of defiance. Today, in a time where many proudly obey the demands of a system they rarely challenge, this resistance has never been more essential. Picture for a second living an existence so uncomplicated, so in tune with your inner reality that it becomes a quiet challenge to others. Consider what it means to value serenity over status, meaning over showing off, and inner focus over endless interruption. In a society obsessed with disorder, loudness, and fake activity, a modest life does not go unseen. On the contrary, it reveals painful facts.
It sparks bitterness and creates aggression in those who have lost touch with what freedom really feels like. In this video, we will examine why true simplicity has turned into a danger for the generation of modern followers. Stick with me until the very end, because the final lesson we will reveal is the most life-changing of all, a truth that might completely change how you see human reactions, social burdens, and emotional freedom. Think deeply about this. Why do people who say they love peace often destroy it? Why does your happiness bother individuals who never stop running after something? Why does your quiet self-assurance annoy those who rely on outside praise to feel alive? These are not accidental actions.
They show deep psychological patterns studied by experts like Carl Jung, Erich Fromm, and Viktor Frankl. Their work helps us comprehend why people who are broken inside feel threatened by those who are solid and grounded. Throughout this story, we will look at the forces driving this dynamic and the powerful impact your way of life can have on others. Before we move on, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, share your views, and pass this message along. Your support helps this kind of wisdom reach people just like you who are looking for growth and a deeper grasp of life. I promise you, the insights coming up can shift the way you see society's hidden tensions and the quiet psychological battles that happen in everyday life. Now, let us go deeper.
The modern world has mastered a new kind of slavery. It no longer needs chains or jails. Instead, it trains people to trap themselves in routines they don't question, goals they didn't choose, and standards they never checked. Many live as if someone else were writing the story of their life. They follow the invisible rules of comparison, buying things, and the need to always be performing. That is why your simple life, your refusal to play by these rules, feels like an act of rebellion. You are a reminder of the choices they were too scared to make. You represent the freedom they are afraid to chase. Erich Fromm, in his study of modern society, explained that people often run from freedom because it brings responsibility. It takes bravery, it asks for self-awareness, and so they choose to blend in, even if it means giving up their inner peace. When you choose simplicity, you expose this truth. You force them to face the fact that they gave up their freedom, and this confrontation causes pain, sometimes even hate. Think about this. Have you ever seen people get annoyed when you slow down, when you pick silence over noise, or when you say no to opportunities that others would chase out of fear? Why does your refusal to rush threaten those who worship speed? Why does your calmness upset those who live in emotional storms?
Share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might connect with someone who has faced the exact same reactions. As we look closer at this, it becomes clear that simplicity challenges the story of modern life. It suggests that happiness doesn't come from gathering stuff, but from being present. It suggests that meaning is not found in constant motion, but in living with purpose. And that message is deeply shaky for those who built their identity on the very things you let go of. Carl Jung called this the shadow effect, the emotions people project onto others when they face parts of themselves they have hidden away. Your simple life wakes up their shadow. It makes them face the emptiness under their busyness.
It reveals that their lifestyle choices might not be truly theirs, but forced by the group mindset. This realization hurts, and instead of exploring it, many choose to reject the mirror, which is you. To live simply in a complex world is to hold a quiet power. It is to walk a path that shows how fake the paths of others really are. And that is why your existence becomes a target. You break the comfortable lies that keep people obedient. You break the spell that tells them they have no choice. And when a person trapped in emotional slavery sees someone who is free, the difference becomes unbearable. The question is, what does this say about them? And what does it say about you? This is what we will continue to look at as we move forward.
Think for a moment about the nature of resentment. It rarely comes from actual harm. It is far more often born from comparison, insecurity, and the uncomfortable realization that someone else is living with a freedom we denied ourselves. When you embrace a simple life, you are not just making personal choices, you are challenging a whole culture that teaches people to measure their worth through work, possessions, and public fame. Your simplicity becomes a statement that meaning can be found outside this endless show. And for those who built their identity on these external structures, such a statement is deeply scary. Imagine someone who has spent years chasing status, spending more than they have, and tying their dignity to how others see them.
Now imagine this person watching you, living quietly, intentionally, without the need to show off or compete. They may smile politely, but internally something burns. Your presence acts as a silent reminder that they could have chosen differently. And this silent reminder is powerful. It wakes up doubts they worked hard to bury. It brings back questions they ignored. It reveals the uncomfortable truth that the race they are running may not lead anywhere meaningful.
This emotional reaction has been studied deeply by thinkers such as Friedrich Nietzsche, who pointed out that resentment often arises when individuals lack the courage to face their own limits. Instead of examining their inner world, they throw their frustration onto those who embody what they cannot achieve. In your case, the simplicity of your life becomes a symbol of what they secretly want, yet fear they may never have. Your refusal to engage in unnecessary conflict or competition can be seen as arrogance. Your peace is misinterpreted as judgment. People begin to believe that your calm existence is somehow insulting theirs. They begin to question why you do not struggle the way they do, why you do not hold on to the same social definitions of success. And in their confusion, hostility can show up. Reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever noticed that some individuals become irritated not because you have done anything wrong, but simply because you are content? Have you observed how your happiness can feel like a provocation to those who have never known inner peace? Why does your lack of interest in material luxury bring criticism from those who worship it? Leave your reflections in the comments. They may help others recognize patterns they have been experiencing in silence.
Let us analyze this dynamic through another psychological lens. Viktor Frankl, in his studies on meaning, stated that an individual who lacks purpose becomes increasingly open to emotional manipulation. Without inner direction, people grab on to external symbols of value. When their sense of identity depends entirely on social approval, they become deeply disturbed by anyone who shows independence. Your simple lifestyle reveals that it is possible to live without excessive praise. This revelation threatens the fragile structure that keeps them psychologically dependent. Modern life increases this dependency. People are constantly exposed to edited versions of success, beauty, and happiness. The pressure to fit in is crushing.
And yet here you are, rejecting the spectacle, choosing silence over noise, choosing presence over distraction, choosing reality over fakeness. In doing so, you disrupt the emotional comfort zones of those who remain trapped in the cycle. Your choices shine a light on a deep truth. Freedom is not about having more, but needing less. And that single truth shakes the entire logic of modern slavery, a slavery designed to make people believe that fulfillment comes only through buying and constant stimulation. But there is another layer to this phenomenon, one that goes even deeper into the human mind. Carl Jung explained that when individuals hide their true desires for too long, those desires do not disappear. They hide in the subconscious, waiting for any opportunity to rise to the surface. When these people meet someone who lives in line with their inner values, these hidden desires wake up, and instead of rising with admiration, they rise with anger. Because when the soul has been ignored for too long, its voice returns not as inspiration, but as pain. Your simple life, your grounded presence, becomes a mirror that reflects this inner conflict, and many people cannot bear to look at it. Think about how powerful this is. Without speaking a word, without forcing your lifestyle on anyone, you become a trigger for emotional reaction. This is why you may feel hostility where none should exist. This is why your peace annoys those living in chaos. This is why your reality feels threatening to those who sold theirs. As we go deeper into this topic, our next step will explore the hidden emotional mechanisms behind this hostility and the surprising ways it shapes social interactions.
As we move deeper into this reflection, imagine an invisible tension that forms between two kinds of people, those who seek meaning and those who surrender to programming. This tension becomes especially visible when a person chooses a simple and intentional life. The modern world has trained many to believe that complexity equals importance, that busyness equals value, and that constant stimulation equals progress. When someone breaks away from this formula, the reaction is not neutral. It is often defensive, emotional, and sometimes outright hostile. But why? What emotional mechanisms lie beneath this hostility? To understand this, think of what Carl Jung called the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming one's true self.
This journey requires looking inside, courage, and a willingness to face one's own contradictions. Most people never begin this process. Instead, they accept the identities offered to them by society, the identity of the worker, the consumer, the competitor, the obedient follower of trends. When someone steps outside these identities and embraces simplicity, they are not merely choosing a different lifestyle, they are exposing the psychological dependence of those who have not yet awakened. This exposure leads to what Erich Fromm described as escape mechanisms. People who feel internally empty often use external structures, social norms, cultural demands, material success, to avoid facing that emptiness. When you take those structures away, or simply refuse to play by their rules, their emotional shelter falls apart, and without realizing it, they direct their fear, frustration, and insecurity toward you. Your life becomes an unintentional challenge to this psychological system they rely on. Now, consider the concept of projection, a powerful force in human relationships. When people feel not good enough, they search for someone to blame. Instead of acknowledging their discomfort, they project it onto the nearest person who embodies what they are lacking.
Your simplicity becomes mistaken for laziness. Your independence becomes labeled as arrogance. Your refusal to participate in endless buying becomes seen as judgment. These accusations do not reflect who you are. They reflect the emotional conflict brewing inside them. Think about how common this is in daily interactions. Have you ever noticed how some people become irritated when you express a desire for peace instead of drama? How they interpret your silence as superiority, even when you simply prefer not to waste your energy? Why does your contentment seem to disturb them more than their own dissatisfaction disturbs themselves? Share your experiences in the comments. Your story may connect with someone who is struggling to understand similar reactions.
There is another dimension to this phenomenon, one rooted in social conditioning. The modern world celebrates excess. It rewards those who chase after everything, even when they do not know what they truly want. The person who chooses less, who chooses intentionality, disrupts this cultural story. Your lifestyle sends a message that happiness cannot be bought, that fulfillment does not come from gathering things, and that true power lies in self-awareness. For those deeply attached to external validation, this message feels like a threat to their view of the world. Nietzsche spoke about the herd mentality, the tendency of individuals to follow the group, even when the group is wrong. When someone steps out of the herd and finds peace in simplicity, the herd sees it as an act of rebellion. And because the herd depends on shared rules for emotional stability, anything that challenges those rules must be rejected. This explains why your choices can provoke such strong reactions. Let us reflect on this with a deeper psychological interpretation. Viktor Frankl explained that when a person lacks meaning, they experience an existential vacuum. This vacuum shows up as anxiety, boredom, or a restless need to be constantly distracted. People trapped in this cycle are not truly living. They are simply avoiding themselves.
When they encounter someone who is broken free, someone who has embraced meaningful simplicity, the contrast highlights their own disconnection. And instead of seeking change, many react with resentment, not because they dislike your life, but because your life forces them to face truths they have avoided. Think carefully about this. Your presence alone can reveal what others are trying to hide from themselves. Your calm exposes their chaos. Your reality reveals their conformity. Your clarity uncovers their confusion. And the pain of this realization often becomes too heavy for them to bear. This leads to subtle acts of hostility, sudden distance, unexpected criticism, mockery disguised as humor, passive-aggressive comments, attempts to make you doubt your path. These behaviors are not about you. They are about the internal war they are fighting. Imagine this internal war as a conflict between two forces, a longing for genuine freedom and the fear of leaving the familiar prison of social expectations. When people see you choose freedom, they feel the first force rising, but the second force pushes back with fear. This conflict becomes emotional turbulence projected onto those who embody the freedom they crave. As we continue our exploration, the next part will reveal the most powerful insight of all, the insight that ties all these reactions together and reveals why a simple life does more than provoke hate. It exposes the deepest truth about human nature and the modern condition.
As we arrive at this final reflection, imagine standing on a quiet road where the world's noise finally begins to fade. In this silence, a profound truth emerges, one that reveals why a simple life triggers such strong reactions in the generation of modern servants. It is not merely envy, nor simple misunderstanding. It is something far deeper. Your life exposes a possibility they were taught to ignore, and that possibility destroys the foundation of their psychological dependence. Think about what it means to live simply in a world built on overstimulation. Your choices directly contradict the story that society carefully crafted, the idea that happiness must be made, purchased, or earned through endless sacrifice.
When you find contentment in small things, you prove that the system is unnecessary for inner fulfillment. This realization threatens an entire structure of beliefs that many have built their identity upon. And when a belief system is threatened, people do not react logically. They react emotionally, sometimes violently, because you are touching the core of how they see themselves. Let us return to the teachings of Erich Fromm, who emphasized that modern individuals often fear freedom because freedom demands responsibility for one's own life. A simple life embodies that responsibility. It shows that one can choose peace over pressure, intention over impulse, clarity over chaos, and those who fear freedom may resent anyone who exemplifies it. Your life becomes a symbol of what they could be if they dare to step outside the psychological cages they inhabit. Carl Jung would say that you awaken their unfulfilled self. When someone sees you living with purpose and simplicity, the part of them that longs for the same awakens from its repression. But instead of embracing it, many become angry at the reminder of what they neglected. You are not judged for your choices. You are judged for the mirror you unintentionally hold up to them. Your very existence reveals the distance between who they are and who they wish they had the courage to become.
Imagine someone who has spent years chasing possessions, status, and approval. Internally, they feel lost, exhausted, and disconnected. They have invested so much of themselves in this pursuit that questioning it feels impossible. When they encounter you, calm, grounded, unaffected by the race, they confront the uncomfortable truth that they may have chosen wrong. Instead of facing that truth, they throw their frustration onto you. Your peace becomes an accusation. Your simplicity becomes a challenge. Your independence becomes an offense. And yet, none of these feelings truly belong to you. This is where Nietzsche's insights light up the heart of the matter. He believed that people often resent not what others have, but what others reveal about their own limitations.
Your simple life reveals their lack of courage, their lack of self-control, their inability to detach from a system they know is harming them. The hatred they direct toward you is in reality hatred for the parts of themselves they abandoned. Reflect on this deeply. Have you ever been criticized for choosing a quieter path? Have people accused you of lacking ambition simply because your ambitions do not mirror theirs? Have you been mocked for preferring peace over constant stimulation? These reactions are not reflections of your value. They are confessions of their internal conflict. And understanding this gives you immense emotional power. There is another dimension to this phenomenon, one that is often overlooked. Simplicity is not just a lifestyle, it is a form of emotional ownership. When you detach from trends, from societal pressures, from the demands of ego-driven comparison, you become psychologically independent. And independence is the greatest threat to any system built on conformity. Modern servants are not defined by visible chains, they are defined by invisible obligations. The obligation to impress, to compare, to consume, to compete. Your refusal to participate in these obligations symbolizes freedom in its purest form, and nothing terrifies the psychologically dependent more than the sight of freedom they have not yet claimed.
This brings us to the most powerful insight of all, the truth you have been waiting for. The reason your simple life triggers hatred is because simplicity destroys illusion. It cuts through the lies people tell themselves to justify their exhaustion. It exposes the emptiness behind their compulsions. It reveals the fragility of their identity. And once simplicity reveals illusion, there is no return to unconsciousness. Some people fear this awakening so much that they would rather resent you than face themselves.
But here is the revelation that transforms everything. The hostility you receive is proof that you are living in alignment with your authentic nature. If your life were insignificant, no one would react. The reactions you provoke are evidence of your clarity, your peace, your freedom. And freedom in a world built on invisible servitude will always be misunderstood. So as this journey concludes, let this truth settle in your heart. Your simplicity is not a weakness. It is a form of rebellion. It is a declaration of independence. It is a reminder that life does not need to be complicated to be meaningful. And while others may resist the mirror you hold, your path remains yours, quiet, powerful, and profoundly free.
This is where our reflection ends, and this is where your journey of awakening continues. Thank you for watching.